What's up, everybody? Welcome in to a winning edition of SSPN Postgame.
It was bound to happen eventually, Jude.
Especially when you play the Pistons.
Yeah, that helps when you play the statistically possibly one of the worst teams to ever have been created by man.
Yeah, I don't want to... When I say this, my purpose is not to crap on the Pistons. It's more just a commentary on how tough things are for them. While there were some moments, we'll get in and break down the game, and there were definitely some good things that we saw. It really felt like, to me, we were operating like at most at like 85% tonight, and we still had like a double-digit lead on these guys for most of the game. So I'm with Adrian. Let's play the Pistons every game.
I'm with it. It also helps when Cade Cunningham is not playing.
Yes, thank you for mentioning that.
Because he's actually good. I feel bad for him.
Yeah. I mean, he's a former number one player. We were both talking about it. We both have him on our fantasy team because of the numbers that he puts up. He's like one of our best players. It's tough for him out there right now. So not only did we play the Pistons, who are already worse than us, but we played them without their best player. And that led to let's pull up the box score here, Ethan. A 130-108 victory, where the Spurs only, they didn't lose a quarter, but they did only not win one quarter when they tied with the Pistons 32-32. But I'm going to take it off, Ethan, because there's some things I want to talk about to start this game that have, they're just dominating the Spurs verse right now. It's stuff that we've talked about before, some stuff that I'm about to eat some crow on it, Ethan. Because, we keep it real here at SSPN always. And, of course, that is with Trey Jones in the starting lineup and the things that we have seen over the past 3 games. I could dish it to you, but I have a little thing that I wrote down kind of about it. So I'm just going to ramble this off, and then I'll dish it to you. And then after that, we'll get into the game flow, because I thought I might make a clip out of this too, just because this is kind of, one, it's big in Spurs news with the way we've been playing. But then 2, it's kind of probably the biggest topic of conversation, like outside of the game, moving forward for the team. So what I wrote down, here's what I got on Trey Jones in the starting lineup. Trey's facilitation and scoring is opened up so much more when he's surrounded by talent. He's no longer zeroed in, and he actually has people to pass to that are going to convert on their looks. He also pushes the pace in transition and knows how to feed guys in run lanes and position himself correctly. The other thing about the run lanes is the guys that he's playing with are more competent in that area as well. So it just makes the connectedness and the flow so much better. I was wrong about him being in the starting lineup, not significantly changing anything. But, and this isn't, I'm still very wrong. I would like to say that. But with how he looked on the bench this year, 8, 2, and 4, I don't think I was too crazy, not expecting much, or not expecting, a giant change. But the thing that I underestimated, that I talked about on the last post game we did, is what I opened up, that point on. And that was that when he's not being zeroed in on, and he's not having to create his own offense, and there's attention drawn by Wembanyama, Devin, and even Sohan to an extent, and then you've got to close out on Champagnie, in this starting lineup as well. I want to talk about him too. We'll get into some other things, but obviously Trey is the main thing. And I saw another tweet just before we got on here. Every game that Trey Jones has started this year, the Spurs have won the third quarter.
Sorry, my box score just started yelling. Yeah,
you're good. You're good. I thought it was like a vent in your apartment. Anyways,
no.
Going back to Trey, I think I kind of finished my thoughts there.
Yeah, I think you did too, and I think you hit it right on the nail on the head. And to give us kind of an out, if you will, I believe the phraseology that we technically used was, while we agreed we would be better with Trey Jones in the starting lineup, just objectively, because of his ability to push the pace, and he's the only real natural point guard and facilitator on the floor. We agreed on that point. I think we both underestimated the impact actually resulting in wins, which it has. and we've been in games, more competitive games with him in the starting lineup. So we were wrong on that extent. So we have to swallow our words there, both of us, you and me. It wasn't just Jude; it was me as well. But I think the two most important things that you mentioned were his ability to push the pace, and then his ability to know when and when not to change up the monotony of the offense. Like with Jeremy, with everybody else, like there's a certain flow that we play within the offense. Like we always get the sets at the same tempo. It's pretty readable, if you will. And there were a few
Mm-hmm.
times, especially tonight, where Trey is able to like almost lull you to sleep and then flip it on a dime and just shake everything up and get an easy layup because he
Start
was
and
been.
stop speed too kind of ties
Mhm.
into that.
Exactly. He can blow by guys at a higher clip. And all that comes back to his ability to play make for guys in the transition, especially. Definitely been pleased with his ability in the starting lineup.
Yeah, and that's not the only change in the lineup that we had that
Mhm.
we were also kind of wrong on too. Because another thing that we were saying at the beginning of the season, and while we're kind of half wrong, half right, and you'll get where I'm coming from as I finish this thought.
Yeah, I know where
Um,
you're going.
but we kind of said that whoever got moved to the bench this year, it was going to be better for them.
Hmm.
I think the beginning of the season proved that that was not the case for Trey Jones. But
Yes.
who it was the case for is Keldon Johnson, who's been coming off the bench. And there's some other things that I had written down on that as well that I'll read off here and then dish it to you. Um, Obviously I was a big advocate for KJ starting at the beginning of the year, and I think that had a lot to do with all of the hate that he
Hmm.
was getting online. Like long term, if we drafted somebody else, I don't think I would have been opposed to him being a six man, but just kind of with the timing of it and everything, I felt like I felt like there weren't a lot of people out there like standing up for him, so I kind of felt like I needed to do that, kind of.
Hmm.
I think that impacted seeing that a little bit. But what we've seen from him off the bench, man, um, he can create his own offense better than anybody on the team other than Devin and Wemby, which just helps the bench so much because when Keldon creates his own offense, it's not necessarily like the most pretty thing. Like if you wanted, I was thinking of a comparison the other day. Like when you think about Devin creating his own offense, not to say that he can't be physical, but he is a finesse off the dribble, Penny Hardaway, fancy type of stuff. Keldon's a hammer when it
Hmm.
comes to creating his own offense. But the thing that does for the bench is when he just decides to barrel to the rim, you've got Shetty on the perimeter. There were even some times where, they play Champagny off the bench too. You've got Doug as well. And the most important thing about that, Ethan, is that was the role that he played basically all last season. That's what
Hmm.
we're asking him to do on the bench right now. So it's something he's more comfortable in. We still see overlaps in the lineups. I still saw Devin, Trey, and Keldon and Wemby all out there on the floor at the same time tonight.
Hmm.
Um, but the point is him playing off the bench. I mean, that was the other big concern that I had of moving Trey to the starting lineup. Obviously, in that scenario, when I was saying, well, that's going to leave the bench for crap, I was assuming that Keldon would still be a starter. But in this scenario, with these rotations, we've seen Keldon's playmaking also improve this season. And then on top of that, I mentioned Shetty. He's another person who can play make. And we'll pull up the box score here in a little bit. My boy Barlow, it might have like 5+ assists tonight also, very similar to Zach, a couple backdoor passes. We saw that in the Cavs game as well. But the other thing is when they zero in on Keldon, because of his physicality, he's
Hmm.
able to kind of offset that, where when Trey was on the bench, that wasn't the case. And then the last thing I'll say is, and obviously that had to do with him getting zeroed in on and not having, other guys to pass to or just being as competent as the starters are, as I mentioned earlier. But going back, but also Julian Champagny. And I know he doesn't do anything crazy in a lot of these games.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, if you just look at his numbers, you probably don't see much in a lot of these, but his defense, that is something that I have noticed. I think, I don't know if it was you or one of my friends made a comparison to him as kind of a Danny Green
Yeah.
type player. And I think that is a very accurate comparison for Champagny. But I think what Champagny does for the starting lineup is he helps with spacing, just straight up. I mean, like in comparison to Keldon, the spacing is better, and that ties into the pace and the run lanes. And then it's like, okay, And it also the other thing that taking Keldon to the bench does is it opens up Jeremy's offense with the starters as well.
Yeah, I think the Danny Green Manu Ginobili comparison between Champagny and Keldon's situation is very accurate. Obviously, they're different players, but they're similar in the sense that Keldon's play style, when he comes in off the bench, it doesn't matter if he's starting or coming in off the bench. He always starts aggressive and bull and China shop style of play. So it helps if our starting lineup gets off to a lull or they're not playing up to speed. He comes in and is immediately a spark plug, no matter what, just because of how he approaches the game. So I think that is something I didn't really take into account when we were initially discussing him coming in off the bench. I think what you brought up about Trey, when he's basically focused in on coming in off the bench, that's a great point because Keldon had 8 free throws tonight, which led the
Right.
team because he's able to draw attention, get double teamed, and get fouled and finish with contact. Whereas Trey, if you trap him in the backcourt, it's pretty much wraps. He's either turning the ball over or he has to give it up, and he's not an off ball shooter. So it's definitely a bit of positive. I think that we were semi-right in saying that everyone was going to get a chance to come off the bench this season. And so far, that's pretty much been the case. Trey has come off the bench, Jeremy, Devin, even though Devin was more so because of injury,
Right.
but he also had a couple games off the bench, and now Keldon Johnson. I think it's safe to say that Keldon, thus far, through this limited play time, has played the best coming in off the bench. And then also starting Champagny, I mean, you pretty much covered it, but another thing that starting him does is it eliminates one more option that Trey now, as the point guard, doesn't have to think about. Because before, if it was Trey Jones and Keldon starting, that's 4 mouths he has to think about, like who gets the ball now, who's hot. That's a lot to have to think about. Champagny is like, no, he's not getting the ball. He's an off-ball shooter. He's there for spacing. He's the Danny Green. He doesn't need it to get his game going. And then defensively, at 6'9", is able to be very versatile next to Jeremy and next to Victor and next to Devin as well.
Absolutely. I think that's put perfectly, Ethan. We appreciate all of you guys being in here as always. I saw this comment at the beginning that we'll address here before we get into our post game. And shout out to you, Imza. Thank you for being in here. He said, great content, but have been inconsistent with your uploads. Any chance there would be more uploads this year? What I would just say is me and Ethan, we also do have our lives. We have other jobs and stuff. So we do our best to get you some games. Honestly, we had the Cavs game last Sunday, and to be honest, y'all, I canceled late because I forgot that the Saints were playing with their playoff hopes on the line. But yeah, we should be back this Friday against Charlotte. We weren't going to do that initially when it was going to be a random 9:00 game on ESPN. But now that has been removed and it's going to be at a reasonable time, that is scheduled for right now. And we try to do our best, and that's all we can do, Ethan.
That's why you have to follow our Twitter at SSPN. We always give you guys updates on when we're going live.
Or and then on top of that, you can get some highlights as well. I've been putting together some more highlight packages. I know this won't technically be updated, but if you want to go see highlights from Dom Barlow's first 2 games in this backup rotation, go check out SSPN on Twitter. But let's get into the game flow, Ethan. I know we could go over the box score here, but since we did that segment, we can kind of get into that as we talk about it. But Spurs win the first quarter, 31-19. I didn't take too many notes, but I did have a little bit. We had some ball movement. Obviously, our transition game worked off turnovers. Another thing I wrote down was playing less ugly than them, which is a lot of the game tonight, if I'm being completely honest. And then there was one Sohan pass to Wemby, like at the very beginning of the game, that he kind of forced and was a little bit under. So I wrote down knowing when to pass to Wemby. But to be honest, for overall throughout the game, especially when you compare the beginning of the season, that's something that I would say is much improved.
Yeah, very solid start to the quarter. Trey Jones came out facilitating, pushing the pace. What I liked the most was we got the ball to Wemby in the low block to start the game. And early in the season, he was dribbling too much, turning the ball over a little bit too much, lackadaisical with his passes. Tonight, he was very decisive on what he did. It was either a pass out of the double team with no dribbles, or it was a one dribble move into the paint for an easy finish. So I'm glad that he's made that adjustment to his game. Like I said, his passing was on display. I think he had the baseball pass in that first quarter as well. We were playing aggressively on offensive boards, led by your boy Dom Barlow, who came in late in that first quarter, and then Devin Vassell kind of carried the momentum into the second as he started to get hot in the mid range.
Yeah, and kind of in the middle, I believe there was a little bit of a lull
Mm-hmm.
that we had where Pop called timeout, and then we kind of responded. At the end, I think we did give up a little bit of points. I think it was like 28-12 at some point.
Yeah.
I could be a little bit off on the numbers there, but we did have a little bit bigger of a lead and let them go on a little bit of a mini run later in there. But still, overall, I mean, we pretty much dominated the first quarter. And I see another comment down there from our guy Naz Kraz11. Appreciate you being in here. He says comparing Champagny to Danny Green is an insult to Green. Not being a hater, just realistic. He's significantly worse on both sides of the ball. I understand where you're coming from, Naz, but we're just trying to, kind of. He's a 3-and-D player. Like that's his role. We're not trying to say he's Danny Green. Obviously, he hasn't won a championship or doesn't have any finals records yet, and he's 23 or 22 in his second season in the league. We're just saying like a similar role. That's all we were trying to say.
I'm talking 2012, 2013, Danny, when people were like, why is he even on the team? Because he was an undrafted pickup from the Cavs G League team or D League at the time.
Which is exactly what Champagny is.
Yeah, that's the era, 2012-13, before he became an all-defensive second-team level player.
Right, for sure. But in the second quarter, a little bit more offense there from the Pistons. This was the only quarter that we didn't win outright. And the things that I wrote down not the best defense to start, but Sasser is solid. Marcus Sasser from Houston. They do have some pieces on this team, man. As much as they're really struggling, like I think he can be a contributor down the line for somebody. I also wrote down Keldon's defense stepped up a little bit after that. I think he had a block in this quarter, and he was also communicating. I wrote down Keldon yelling on defense. Love to see it. I think it actually, when he was like on that play that I'm specifically remembering, he was telling somebody to rotate or just get their guy because there was somebody wide open for three on the left wing. And I think they might have even made the basket. But regardless, like seeing Keldon recognize and identify that and like yelling, at his teammates to like cover it, as much as that sucks for whoever missed their rotation. I can't remember exactly who it was. That's something that I haven't seen as much this year. Or I say as much, not like in comparison to last year. It's just something I haven't seen a lot. And that's something that we need. So I like the vocal leadership there from Keldon in the second quarter.
Yeah, vocality has picked up, I think, in the past few games, past couple weeks from everybody, but Keldon especially. I think he's kind of been regarded as that leader for a lot of these guys. He's kind of one of the most tenured players and was the leading scorer last year. So I'm glad that he's able to transition that onto the bench. But what I wrote down for the second quarter was aggressive Keldon Johnson. We saw a glimpse of Jeremy Sohan playing at center position for like 2 or 3 minutes, which didn't look too bad. But again, we're playing the Detroit Pistons, who don't necessarily have a great team. So take that with a grain of salt. There was a moment where it felt like our energy kind of dipped down. We were playing to the Pistons level, which you never like to see, but that's kind of what you expect from a young team. A lot of times we play down to our opponent. That's what the second quarter felt like a majority of the time. But your boy, Dom Barlow, he kept the energy going, Jude. Like going for extra possessions, fighting for offensive boards, loose balls, trying to block every shot he can, even though he didn't block every shot, obviously. And then solid positioning from him. I think he saved Julian, who like almost lost his handle in the weak side or in the left corner. He went like behind the back, had to pick up his dribble, and Dom Barlow just moved right underneath the rim, wide open, and saved that entire possession. So love to see the high IQ from Dominic Barlow. Only negative for Dom in that second quarter. I felt like their quick guards were really going at him on just slightly late rotations, and he was having a little bit of trouble rotating. I don't know if that's entirely his fault. There could have been some help that didn't recover in time either. But I just noticed that when Wemby was subbed out of the game, everybody started going at Dom when he was underneath the rim.
Yeah, and the other thing, kind of, this isn't necessarily like responding exactly to what you said there, but one thing that I noticed with the rotations, like all night, kind of when we were texting, is Dom would always go up, like whenever there was somebody coming off a pick and roll and he was like on Jalen Duren, he would always step up and it would kind of be like a semi double team, like near the free throw line. And sometimes that led to some other, to some baskets under the rim. But then other times, he would roll back and would be there. Anyways, the whole reason I bring that up, he did that every time. So I think that that's a part of the defensive game plan. That's not exactly what you were talking about, but that was something that I noticed with his rotations kind of throughout the game.
One quick thing, off topic. I had to do a quick check because I'm a big grammar nerd and I always correct people.
Okay.
Vocality is a word. I may have used it slightly incorrectly, but it is a word. It's the fact or quality of having a voice or unique particular character, a particular way of speaking. So it is a word. Now I may have used it incorrectly, but I just had to address that.
You said, well, I guess if you want to say particular way of speaking.
Yeah. I guess maybe I did use it.
That you're referencing the way that Keldon was talking and the way that the team was talking because they're being louder.
Yeah, Robert Ball. Get out of here.
Oh my gosh. But going back, I'm glad you mentioned that with Barlow because he's like, as much as it's been super fun to talk about the past 3 games and everything. Like I don't want to lead on the impression that like, and no player other than I guess you could say Wemby, is perfect.
Yes.
The point is he's not like, he's still a 20-year-old two-way player. Now, maybe that two-way contract changes in the near future if he keeps playing the way that he's playing. But at the same time, you're still going to have some things that it wasn't just going to be the Cavs and the Bucks game the entire season with Barlow is I guess what I'm trying to say, where it's just like, oh my gosh, this is, like there's like almost no mistakes that I can point to. You know what I mean?
That being said, Jude, he was still 11, 8, and 4 with 2 blocks and plus 10 in the plus minus. So, like, we're really nitpicking here. Like, I am, at least.
No, and the 4 assists, and I did count, it wasn't a lot tonight, but I did count 2 screen assists. One was for Devin and one was for Shetty. There might have been some others. I know one of the shots that he had just rolled right out. But really what I liked is that first mid-range shot that he had. That was, I think, the longest mid-range shot he's taken this year, and he swished it. Man, I don't want to just keep talking about Barlow, but it ties into this second quarter, and keeping the pace. And that really ties into, the Bucks game, man. It's just a little, the fluidity and the movement and the connectedness on defense. Although he still has, like we said, there's still some times where he does get beat by some quicker guards. It just really feels different, man. I know this is the Pistons, so that's really not the best game to do, to take a lot away from. But when you consider the context of the Bucks and the Cavs game, it's like you said, Ethan, we'll see that, like you said, Zach's still out for a couple more weeks. And like you said, if he continues this through that time, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens at the deadline. Not even just for Zach. I think it'll be interesting regardless because, I mean, Shams Charania was on Run It Back talking about how the Spurs have exploratory interest in DeJounte. So, I mean, and we have a lot of cap and guys on expiring deals and assets. So who knows what the Spurs will do? I'm not saying, necessarily Zach is going to get traded or anything. But there could be some other moves as well. It'll just be an interesting time here in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, sorry,
No, you're good.
It's funny. He's right. He's right, but still, I'm right. Anyway,
Robert Ball, Matt Wilson, y'all are real ones for being
they are
in
real
here.
ones. They're being nice too. I like that.
Let's go into the third quarter, Ethan, because this is the third straight game where the Spurs have won the third quarter.
It's Dr. Ball.
That's good. Y'all check out the comments. Y'all, if you're listening on podcast form and you don't know what we're talking about, go to YouTube and then look at the live chat and you can see all the funny stuff we're talking about. It's not probably when you compare the fact that I think we won the Bucks quarter. I don't remember. I didn't look at the box score specifically for the Cavs, but the Bucks quarter I think was like the same score. It might have been 32-25 actually. This doesn't feel as great just because it's the Pistons, but still with the fact that we've won 3 straight third quarters, and we came out with that same intensity. is huge. What I had written down. Oh, this was the quarter where Wemby started looking like point Wemby.
Yep.
Okay, he was going for that triple double, man. And we haven't even mentioned that. We're 25 minutes in. Victor had his first career triple double tonight in 21 minutes. Let's go.
GOAT conversation already? I think so, Jude.
I agree. I completely agree. He had a 6-0 run by himself. I think, you talked about him taking too many dribbles. He's learning from Zach, as much as I was just talking about Zach, but he's learning from Zach and Barlow in the post, man, with the way that he looks for passes. When he gets that ball on the block or the elbow, he's not just immediately, like trying to cross up a guy or even dribble kind of in the post. He's, being patient, surveying, and then maybe he does end up going and getting a bucket, but he's seeing what's happening in the offense and the off-ball movement, before forcing it. We saw a Devin screen and roll. I mean, like that was something I was really happy to see. It ended with a dunk. We saw a Sohan screen and roll as well. That obviously we've seen that from Sohan before. But it was just cool to see Wemby show off his facilitation. He had the behind the back pass that might have actually been in the fourth quarter. But I feel like the movement for the entire team and Wemby's facilitation was shown off in this quarter for sure.
Most definitely. He had the behind the back pass in this quarter. You were correct, Jude. Third quarter. He also had the nutmeg in this quarter. And he just looks way more calm and collected when he has the ball in his hands. I think the point you made about him dribbling too much in the post, the fix is, you said it, I think, without even meaning to say it. He has learned that he can survey without dribbling because he's so big and tall. Like, just having the ball that close to the rim, they're going to have to set a double. You don't have to start trying to back anybody down. So he's learned that, and he can see everything because he's 7'4",
Yep.
and he doesn't have to like turn his body all that much. He just has to turn his neck. So he might be turning that corner and starting to become a better passer every day and every single game. But great ball movement in this entire third quarter. Defense turning into offense, getting out in transition, getting easy baskets. Blake had some minutes. He looked comfortable. He didn't really make any mistakes, I don't think. Yeah, 0 turnovers. I know he didn't really 4 for 4 in the box
Dude,
score.
he ended up getting 9 points in 6
Yeah.
minutes. Shout out to him.
Blake Wesley, I'm telling you, people want to trade for another point guard, another young point guard. I mean, Blake Wesley has shown us a couple things in the past couple games, Jude, and this third quarter in particular, and pushing that pace. But KJ and Devin making some tough buckets as well in this quarter. Really, just it belonged to the Spurs. But again, grain of salt, Detroit Pistons.
For sure. I was kind of surprised that Blake didn't come out with the bench unit to start.
Me too.
But I think that Pop was just like, nah, we're winning this game. I'm not doing any BS. We're running a 9-man rotation. And then if we do what we should, he'll get some minutes anyway. Which I think is probably just with the way the season has gone. I mean, like, it's crazy to think about, Ethan. It doesn't feel as bad as last year, but it's actually technically worse because I saw a graphic today that or on the Pistons broadcast that showed 5-30 is the worst start through 35 games for the Spurs in franchise history.
Dang.
Tough, but when you have Victor to watch, it makes it a lot better.
It definitely does.
And a lot of that has to do with stuff that we've talked about the whole season. The beginning with Jeremy Sohan at point guard, the other lineups that we've gone through. Victor transitioning from the 4 to the 5. Obviously, all of those things after we did some experimenting have
the point Chetty lineups,
right? Exactly. We could go back, man. There was so much different stuff. We're seeing the benefits of those changes. So hopefully we can kind of continue. We can get some more wins and switch that up from the start this season. But at the end of the day, it was good for our draft odds, Ethan. But good string of games with being competitive in the last 2 against the Cavs and the Bucks. So we'll see what happens after this one.
Agreed.
Robert Ball says in the comments before we get into the fourth quarter, and Matt kind of already answers him, but he says, why were there fewer turnovers tonight? Was it poor defense, better ball control, or both? I would actually say a little bit of both.
Yeah.
But I also think that Matt's answer, just the Pistons, is a good one too.
It's a fair point. The Pistons defense is probably the worst I've seen all year.
Yeah.
No
Dude, well, they
disrespect.
couldn't even grab a board. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but like there were so many times where they just dropped the ball and it turned into a turnover.
I texted you about this. James Wiseman. Is that his name? James Wiseman? Yeah, James Wiseman. Isn't that bad? He's the second overall pick. Can't even remember his name. He has the worst body language I've ever seen. I think he alone dropped like 4 uncontested rebounds tonight. And as much as I like his playmaking ability, Killian Hayes defensively is a traffic cone. I mean, nobody was having a problem getting a basket off of Killian Hayes. And Doug McDermott was taking him to movement school in the fourth quarter, which we can get into here in a second. But he was losing him on every little jab step, every little backdoor cut. Killian Hayes was having a difficult time.
Yeah, I completely echo everything you said. Getting into the fourth quarter, Ethan, I didn't take notes at this point. I'm not gonna lie. But what I do remember, because the game was kind of out of reach at that point.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, surprised Wembanyama came in, and
Yeah.
I was happy that Pop let him do that because that's just showing that, like, hey, like I don't know if 2005 Pop, even on a bad team, like lets Wemby do that. Like he might just stick to his rotations and and do his old school Air Force thing, which obviously has led to 5 championships and the most wins all time. So I'm not trying to crap on that. But you could see Wemby was looking for the passes out of the post. After he got the and one to Shetty, I read his lips. He said, I got one more. He was counting the assists. He got that one more. And then, and I believe that was on a Doug 3.
It was.
And then after that was immediately subbed out. And I saw him walking to the bench and he said, thank you, coach, looking at Pop. And that just, in this worst 35 game start in history, Ethan, it made all the difference.
That feels good. That warms the heart. That tugs at the heartstrings, Jude. That's what I do this for. That's why I do SSPN, for moments like that. But in all seriousness, it's extremely impressive for him to have gotten a triple-double in only 20 minutes of play. I'm glad that Pop allowed him to stay in the game. You're right. And Doug McDermott, he needs a shout-out too, because I think he might have had two or three of those last assists were just because of Doug McDermott being an absolute sniper who had 14 points in 15 minutes, 4 threes.
The most quiet 14 points. I believe it because it's like, okay, yeah, no, he made 4 threes. Like I look back, he made 4 threes, but it was just out of nowhere. Looking at our box score, Ethan, this was another thing I noticed just a second ago. Everybody, and let me stop myself. I'm about to be like, everybody's plus minus is plus. But then I'm even remembering while I'm saying that it's the Pistons. So I don't even know if I should get that excited.
And Doug had a -3, which is honestly BS. Like, how can Doug McDermott have -3?
But still, we haven't had anything close to that in the plus minus probably all year. But another thing that I had a thought of, Ethan, looking at the box score, nobody had over 20 tonight. And in the early days of SSPN, I don't know if you remember this, Ethan, some of our best wins in that final DeRozan era was when we had like multiple guys. Like what? Tonight we have 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 8 guys in double digits, and they're all under 20. For some reason, I'm remembering one game where we did that and won, and I think it broke like a losing streak, or it was like a significant win for whatever reason.
I remember what you're talking about.
And Rudy had 19. You know exactly what I'm talking about, right? Yeah. Anyways, it just kind of reminded me of that. Obviously, it's the Pistons, but I saw some parallels, just with the unselfishness and the ball movement. I mean, 5 assists from Devin Vassell, 5 from Trey, obviously 10 from Wemby, 3 from Keldon, 4 from Barlow. Like I said, you add in the screen assists. He's got 6, and then Shetty 3 as well. I mean, and a lot of hockey assists tonight as well.
Yeah, Malachi also had 3 assists. Quietly had a pretty impactful game, I felt. I know he only had 7 points, 3 assists, 2 boards, but I think he had a really nice attempted layup that missed. He got his own rebound and tapped it to Wemby for the slam. Like that had me feeling good.
Me too. I was just glad because only 2 for 7 tonight. But when I saw that, I'm like, okay, but you're giving this extra effort that led to that Wemby dunk. So I can't hate you for it.
Did you, Jude, by any chance see the Instagram reel I sent you the other day of the scene from the movie Sing about the animals that have a talent show, and it's
I
like
so
you
you
don't.
sent it to me, and I like I watched it, but I didn't watch it with any volume. Like I didn't watch the whole thing. I got distracted. I saw it, then something happened. But I know what you're referencing. Is what I'm trying to say.
Are you familiar with that movie scene?
I don't think so.
For
Is
those of
it
you in the
Disney?
comments, it's not Disney, it's
Okay.
DreamWorks, but I'll give you context. There's a gorilla in prison, and his friends are watching the TV. It's the gorilla's son in the talent show singing an Elton John song, "I'm Still Standing," right? And the
Okay.
gorilla dad's like, turn it down. And his friends are just jamming. And he's like, what are y'all watching? And he walks up and he sees his son. And he's like, Johnny, it's my son. It's like a really wholesome moment, right? But all the friends are USC, or USC,
Yeah.
San Antonio Spurs, Chicago Bulls, and the gorilla dad is Toronto Raptors. And he walks up to the TV, and who's on the TV but DeMar DeRozan in these last few games with Chicago going absolutely bananas. And it's the "I'm Still Standing" playing. And I'm not gonna lie to you, Jude, I got a little emotional watching that video as a Spurs fan. I was like, that dude deserves all the love that he gets because of what he did in San Antonio for those couple of years. I know we only made the playoffs once. We lost in 7 to the Nuggets in that first year, but he held it down for us, man. He always competed no matter what. So
He's a OG, man, and he was in a tough spot, dude. And
yeah,
he didn't. And there's so many other players in the league, bro. Campaign was like, I'm not playing for y'all this year, and we got Wembanyama. Like, you know
hmm
what I'm saying? Like, there are a lot of other guys, and Campaign's someone who shouldn't, like his word is so much less valued than
yeah,
like Demar. There are so many players that are of Demar's caliber that maybe if we traded for in that Kawhi trade that maybe they would have stayed here a year but they wouldn't have stayed as long, or maybe they would have wanted to trade immediately or shortly after at the deadline or something. But DeMar embraced us, and DeMar did it from a spot where he was coming from like a place that molded him and a place that he thought he would stay his entire career, you know.
hmm
And when he had been told by Masai Ujiri that he was like untradeable like a week earlier, you know what I mean?
hmm
And despite all of that, he just embraced us fully, played out his contract, didn't complain, learned from Pop. So shout out to my boy DeMar, man.
And that's a weird side note to bring up, but
No.
it actually made me like so sad. I was like, oh, it's my guy.
So is he going to get traded?
I don't know. They're playing really well now.
Okay.
Zach LaVine is the guy people want to trade because he's been
Right.
hurt during this run, but his contract's difficult to trade. So who knows what's going to happen in Chicago? To be honest with you.
This is going to be an interesting deadline. I don't think we've talked too much about the Raptors trade that was just
Mm.
made with R.J. Barrett and Emmanuel Quickly going up to Toronto. I hope that doesn't work out too well because our pick, I believe it is. Well, no, I say I hope that doesn't work out too well. That's actually going to make them better. That's good for us. Never mind.
Yeah,
Uh, but I believe it's like top 6 or top 8
top
protected.
8 protected. I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, it's good. It was a good trade for the Knicks too. I think they're 5-0 since they made that trade to get OG
Hmm.
Anunoby. So
And he's been playing really well.
I think the Spurs. I mean, we don't have to go into detail here because we're already at 38 minutes. But I think we're going to have some moves, or at least one move, be made. I don't know if it'll be the
I agree.
DeJounte one because
Right.
I just don't think we have enough that we're going to be willing to give up for him.
I agree.
Because
There's too many other teams that are involved.
yeah,
But I think that's why Shams labeled it as exploratory interest. You know what I
mhm.
mean? Not like finite interest. But Robert Ball says top
Top
6.
six, perfect, even
Just
better.
checked. So that is better. And Matt Wilson says DJ, heck no. No later. You're not the only friend that I have that has responded that way. It's kind of funny. I either get like, yeah, I'd be down, like I'm not
Mhm.
like, and when I say they're not necessarily like, like thrilled off the wall, like they have to have it, but it's like I got a response and it's either like, okay, yeah, I'd be cool with that, or it's just like, heck
Mhm.
no, I do not want DeJounte. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But I got another report today, or not another report, but I got a notification today that said that the Warriors are interested in him. I know that the Lakers are interested in him as well. To be honest, I think there's just too many contending or playoff teams
Mhm.
that he could make a difference on, more than us. We're gonna like we're gonna be very like, we'll probably give him an offer, but it's not gonna be, we're not gonna budge at all. It's not gonna be like a negotiation. It's gonna be like, this is our max. Maybe it's like Malachi and like a couple picks or something. I don't know. I'm totally shooting off the wall, if in that situation. But the whole point I'm bringing that up is I don't think that we're going to give up that much, like you said. And I think there are a lot of other teams that are interested in him, that would be willing to give up more.
I think if we make a trade, Jude, just to finish this off, it'll probably be some of our vet guys like a Zach Collins, a Doug, a Devontae.
Maybe even Shetty, dude. I know that sucks, but he's on an expiring contract.
And the only thing I would expect back is probably just picks, probably low-level picks, because I don't think we're going to get anything like really worthwhile, and maybe some really bottom feeder type role players, or like two-way level guys that are super young, only so that we can elevate Dom Barlow. We can elevate Blake Wesley, and they can become kind of permanent rotational players, and then just fully embrace this rebuild, which already feels like we're fully embracing it.
Right.
We could still get some kind of, I don't know, profit off of
well, hey, while you're bringing that up, what was the move that we made last year?
I'm going blank. Jakob Poeltl trade, right?
Well, there was that one, but there was also Jay Rich for Devontae and 4 second-round picks.
Yeah. Stuff like that.
Exactly.
Stuff like that, which I'm not mad at all. Let's see how many second-round picks we can get out of Jay Rich. What if you flip Devontae for like 2 more?
Let's trade him back.
Yeah. To Miami.
No. Oh, that's right. He's in Miami. Dang it. I forgot he got moved too. I was about to say he was still in New Orleans. I think he was in New Orleans for the game earlier this year when we played the Pelicans.
Was he?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, because we saw him on the bench.
I don't remember, but
I could be wrong. But I have some memory of him talking to Devin and Keldon or something.
Possibly.
But anyways, Ethan, the last note that I think we can wrap this up on is I ended that Buck stream saying, hopefully we can have more 40-minute post games, because that probably means good things have happened. And that's exactly what happened tonight. I'm
glad it happened, Jude. I've had a good one. It helps that this game started at 6, so I don't feel really as tired when we're wrapping this thing up. And there's a good chance we get another win on Friday, Jude. Knock on wood.
We haven't had 2 straight wins since the 2 Phoenix wins in like the second week of the season. But we have the LaMelo-less LaMelo-less Hornets coming to San Antonio on Friday night. That will now not be a random 9:00 game on ESPN. So good news for Spurs and Hornets fans.
Yeah. Hopefully Scary Terry doesn't go off against us.
Because he did. I saw that earlier this week. So thank you for reminding me of that. And is Gordon Hayward still active?
I forgot all about Gordon Hayward, to be completely honest with you.
Remember when Gordon Hayward was the missing piece for the Kyrie Celtics? And then game 1, dude, I remember watching that game live and being like pumped. I was like super excited. I was like, this is going to be the East battle. This is an Eastern Conference Finals preview. And then that happened. It hasn't been the same since, unfortunately.
Charlotte's ESPN injury report has no players on it, which is wrong because LaMelo is definitely hurt. So I guess Gordon Hayward is playing.
I thought he was. So yeah, unless Scary Terry and what were the years? Was it like circa 2014, 2015 when Gordon Hayward was an all-star?
Yeah, like 15, 16, I think.
Kind of around there. Yeah, and an all-star Gordon Hayward show up again on Friday.
Brandon Miller revenge game?
We should. Oh, shoot. I didn't even think about that. I think we should have a chance. But I will say this, as we're thinking about this will be the last thing I'll say, Ethan. I think we do need to have a little bit more intensity than we had tonight if we want to win that game.
Absolutely. Because this is, the Hornets aren't good, but they have a veteran presence that will take advantage of that, where the Detroit Pistons did not.
Yeah, for sure. And Terry Rozier's last game, he had 37 points.
Yeah.
So
24-7 on the season.
There you go. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us tonight. Finally got a win post game in. Very good to see. If you enjoyed the content, don't forget to hit that like and that subscribe button below. Follow us on Twitter at SSPN on YT, at Jude McLaren, and at Ethan_Quintero to stay updated with all that good stuff. Happy Wemby triple-double day. We'll see y'all.